It's time, Cougar Nation. Cougar Tracks. The best season analysis with BYU insider Mitch Harper on KSL NewsRadio and on video every day on the YouTube page for KSL Sports.
Welcome into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube and KSL NewsRadio, your legacy home of the Cougars. I am your BYU insider, Mitch Harper. BYU football wrapped up National Signing Day. The early signing period still going after Wednesday, but day one of the early signing period is a wrap, and BYU signs 19 players in what might be the best class ever, potentially, in BYU football history. Let's dive in here on our signing day special on Cougar Tracks.
The top story of the day. The biggest story in the world of BYU sports right here on Cougar Tracks.
BYU football signs 19 players. 20th ranked class in the 24/7 Sports team recruiting rankings for the class of 2026. BYU football put together one heck of a recruiting class. This is a star-studded group that has a lot of talent to be some really special players and impactful players. And the most notable one of the group is quarterback Ryder Lyons, who, after some mixed signals, some mixed reports that he wasn't going to sign on Wednesday, the king of aura. Who's calling my who? Who's calling that? Who's calling that? The king of aura himself made it official at Folsom High School and signed on the dotted line and officially became a BYU Cougar. Ryder is 6'3", 225 pounds out of Folsom High School. He's the highest rated recruit in the Kalani Sitake era. That dates back to 2016. He's big time, folks. Ryder Lyons is that dude. He has incredible arm strength. I think what's impressive, too, watching many of his games during his senior season at Folsom, he is a leader. He is someone that rallies his team. They get behind him. It's crazy to me that the recruiting analysts dropped this guy from a 5-star to a 4. Again, the disrespect on BYU. What is the deal? I mean, it's nothing new to BYU fans. They know the drill by now. Okay, the nation's going to disrespect BYU. But really, Ryder Lyons, what's he done to say that he needs to be dropped from a 5 to a 4-star? Really? The guy was a winner throughout his time at Folsom. Incredible skill set, great measurables. It's crazy. But to hold off the likes of Oregon, USC, Michigan, Miami, Ryder Lyons is an incredible talent, and he's coming to BYU. Highest rated quarterback that BYU has signed since Ben Olsen. That was in 2002, folks. Ben Olsen was the number one recruit in the nation 24 recruiting cycles ago. It's been a long time since BYU got a quarterback that has the recruiting aura like Ryder Lyons. But I think that, it's going to be interesting to see the timeline of everything. Ryder's going to be serving a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Orlando, Florida, a Spanish-speaking mission. And his expected timeline to enroll at BYU is in 2027. You would assume, and that's probably naive to ever just assume anything in college football, but Bear Bachmeier is, at that time, expected to be a junior, and Bear has cemented himself as QB1 until further notice. You go 11-1 in a regular season, you're that guy until otherwise noted. So Ryder, he can go on his mission. If he does the one-year mission, as he stated, the timeline, arrive at BYU in 2027, you would then think that 2028 could be the spot where Ryder Lyons maybe could be quarterback one for BYU. Aaron Roderick was asked about the success of Bear Bachmeier and if that's had any impact on recruiting quarterback talent. And keep in mind, this question was asked at a time when Ryder was not officially signed yet. So there was this thought that Ryder's not going to sign. Is there mystery? Is he going to avoid signing with BYU? Well, this was A-Rod on Bears' success having an impact on recruiting QBs?
I don't think it's not a negative. I mean, I think if anything, it's positive. QBs, most quarterbacks want to go to a place where there's been a history of good quarterback play and especially a recent history. I mean, obviously the quarterback play here going back in the old days was unbelievable. And we've had as good of a tradition at this school as almost as good as anywhere in the country. But I think with quarterback recruits, your recent history is what really matters the most. And ours has been solid. And so when we recruit quarterbacks, they're usually interested in this place. And I also think that it's a unique position where QBs are confident guys. The great ones believe in themselves and they don't worry too much about who's in front of them or who's already there. They usually believe I'm going to go be the guy. And so I haven't had anybody say, I'm not interested in BYU because you're starting a freshman. That has not come up yet.
I love that commentary from Aaron Roderick because he hit it on the head. Quarterbacks are confident, man. They don't go to any quarterback situation and say, I need to be handed the job. If they are, they're not the right guy. They can't be ducking the situation. They invite any sort of competition. And when Ryder Lyons shows up on campus, he'll push Bear to be better. Ryder Lyons, though, you create situations for him to be able to impact the program right away when he arrives on campus. He's that good. Ryder Lyons is going to be a special player at BYU. I mean, the sheet of offers: Oregon, Alabama, Arizona State, Auburn, Colorado, Florida, Florida State, Georgia, LSU, Michigan, Notre Dame, Ohio State. Again, the who's who. And BYU got him. So that's a big-time get. And to get the top LDS player, that's huge as well. And he's a guy that wants to serve a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This was also Aaron Roderick on high-level quarterback play taking place at BYU right now.
I think our quarterback play here has been really good for a while now. And so it's going to continue to be really good. And no matter who's here, we're going to keep playing at a high level at QB.
Hard to argue with Aaron Roderick on that commentary because he's done it. Think about since he's been at BYU in 2018 to now, Zach Wilson, Jaron Hall, Keaton Slovis, all those guys got opportunities in the NFL. Jake Retzloff, he won 11 games in a season for BYU a year ago. Bear Bachmeier led BYU to the best regular season in terms of wins since 2001, off to the Big 12 championship game. So it's a little bit of a quarterback factory again. But I think it can go to an even higher level with Bear and with Ryder Lyons. The pipeline is in a great place for BYU's quarterback situation, and Ryder Lyons is going to be the face of this program eventually. I would be pretty confident about that. His senior year, he passed for 3,270 yards. Junior year, 3,011 yards. Sophomore year, 3,578 yards. Oh, let's downgrade him to a 4-star. Okay. Navy All-American coming up in January, which will air on KSL 5 TV. You can go on and on about Ryder Lyons. He is a special talent in every sense of the word. You just watch him, too, his dual threat ability. He's so physical, too. I mean, he's a guy, like, he's not physical like Bear, but he's not afraid of contact either. Like, he'll get into the mix. He's not going to be a guy that runs up the middle like Bear, but he can get out to the edge. He's got good footwork, great technician. I mean, he's been a guy that BYU's been recruiting since 8th grade. This is kind of an old school recruitment where it took time. It was building a relationship early on and growing that relationship. And Kalani Sitake and Aaron Roderick have outstanding relationships with him. I remember, too, when Ryder was announcing his mission call for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, it was fun to watch it on Instagram. He announced that he was going to Orlando, Florida, Spanish-speaking. Kalani Sitake was in the call or in the Instagram video watching, because you can see on Instagram who is also watching the video. So I see Kalani's in there, and then I also see Dan Lanning's in there. And recently with the Penn State drama with Kalani, easy to think, hey, does Ryder Lyons not sign? And it would have been easy for him to say, you know what, let me pump the brakes a little bit. Let me pump the brakes and kind of get a feeler for everything. That's why it was so critical for Kalani to get the extension done by Wednesday, because this whole thought of, I'll wait till the Big 12 championship game. No, that wasn't going to work. It had to be done on Tuesday. It got accelerated. It was completely in the public eye. You had to get some resolution by signing day, and it worked for all parties involved, because had Kalani not cleared the air, Ryder could have easily just said, I'll pump the brakes and wait until February or wait until 2027, and then he's a complete free agent, basically. And following recruiting as long as I have, when a guy doesn't sign, when he's initially committed, I'd probably have to dive into the numbers and look at the percentages, but typically it's not great. It's not great that they end up signing and enrolling. So it was huge that Ryder just got it done, signed. He's a BYU Cougar. He's part of the family, as Kalani likes to say, and away we go. But Ryder Lyons, big-time talent for BYU. Some other guys that are some impressive players on this BYU football signing day class in 2026. Brock Harris, tight end, 6'6", 245 pounds, out of Pineview High School in St. George. I had the chance to watch him in person in August. And let me tell you, his size just stood out like a sore thumb. If you didn't know anything about, if you just told some random football fan that's at a high school game and said, hey, which one of these guys is going D1 to play college football? I bet 9 out of 10 people, even if they're not a talent evaluator, someone that watches much football, they'd say, probably that guy. Because he's big. He is huge. It looks like a guy that's a college body already out of high school. And Harris is incredibly productive. They can do so many different things with him. He even played a little bit of defense, too, in his senior year with Pineview. But Harris is a touchdown machine, a big play receiver, too, as a tight end. And he's physical. He can be an extra blocker. I mean, he can do so many different things in an offense. So versatile. And the tight ends in general that BYU signed in this group are really talented. Ty Getchie, 6'6", 220 pounds, out of Colorado. Really good football player. Got the chance to see him briefly at the Under Armour Next camp in May. And unfortunately, he was dealing with a little bit of a hamstring injury, so he was off to the sideline, which was a bummer because I really wanted to see him in person. But he's got a close connection to Andrew George. He told me back in May that he was planning to serve a mission after playing one season at BYU in 2026, then going out on a mission in 2027. But again, everyone's timelines are different, and that depends on personal feels and what they want to do with their mission. But Getchie is a really good player, 4-star tight end, so underrated. I don't think anyone's talking about him enough. And I think that this guy has so much upside that his best days in football are clearly ahead of him. You know, typically with star ratings, they're projecting potential NFL draft status. It's not necessarily what they're going to immediately be at the college level. It's projecting who's going to be maybe the next first round, second round draft picks. And for 4-star prospects, you're saying that's probably at a minimum an NFL draft pick as a 4-star, or a priority undrafted free agent on the high end where you're getting the first calls right when the draft is over. That's kind of like the floor for a 4-star. And then the ceiling could be, first round talent potentially. So when you get a 4-star designation, that's pretty noteworthy. And that's Getchie, 6'6", 220 pounds, again, out of Colorado. Cherry Creek High School, a Colorado powerhouse in the prep scene. Another tight end. Again, this is a really good tight end class. Parker Ord, 6'4", 215 pounds. His uncle is Andrew Ord, who played at BYU with Kalani Sitake in the late 90s, early 2000s. His dad is a mission president for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Parker Ord, very good football player too, down in the state of Texas in Frisco. I like what BYU is building at the tight end position. I think that's been an area where when you project out and look at the pipeline at the tight end position, I kind of look at the 2026 season. You've got Anthony Olson, who could return. Guys that are coming back from this year's team. Kean Need. You've also got Ethan Wood, a New Mexico State transfer. Noah Moiaki, who's shown moments. He's played. He's been primarily a blocker outside of week one. Will Zundel, kind of the special teams energy guy. Tucker Kelleher was kind of out of sight, out of mind, really, after fall camp. Jacob Nye was dealing with an injury. You got Ty Getchie, Matthew Frederick from East High School, Reiner Swanson, who's currently on a mission. He had, during fall camp, was at home because he suffered an injury on the mission. Now he's back out on the field, I believe. Brock Harris. This tight end group is really good. And then Parker Ord as well. Parker Ord is one of the players that will be serving a mission for the church before enrolling at BYU. Plans to serve a mission like Ryder Lyons and Brock Harris as well. Brock Harris is going to be serving in Spokane, Washington. Parker Ord's going to serve a mission as well. Another player that's going to be serving a mission for the church is Jax Tanner, offensive lineman. This guy is outstanding. I watched him in person at the Under Armour Next Camp in May. And out of Meridian, Idaho, Rocky Mountain High School, this guy's been a baller since he was a freshman in high school. Been an anchor along the varsity offensive line at Rocky Mountain High, and basically been, you don't get through to him. He doesn't give up sacks. He doesn't give up anything. He wins every one-on-one battle. And in those camp settings in the summertime and spring, some of the one-on-one battles are like the best content and best observation periods in those scenes. Sometimes people would say 40-yard dash. I love when it's D-line versus offensive line, and they are battling. And there was a moment in that camp where Jax Tanner was going up against Viliami Moala. Viliami Moala at the time was an Oregon commit. And now I believe Viliami Moala ended up signing with North Carolina. But he's going up against Viliami Moala, and Moala cannot be stopped by anyone. No one. And Jax Tanner lines up and stonewalls him once. There were some ones where Moala got by, but man, it was some battles of high-level, epic proportions. I loved it. It was great because Moala was just unguardable by anyone. And Jax Tanner was in that camp where Bot Molitalo was the MVP offensive lineman. I kind of thought that day Jax Tanner was the best offensive lineman. To me, Jax Tanner, when he gets back from his mission, he's going to serve a 2-year mission for the church. He'll be plug and play. He will be, that's your center from the jump. Now, missions for offensive linemen, depending on where they go, that can really determine, where their body's at. I think he's going to Cape Town, I believe. And I just think back to the Barrington brothers where they lost like 70 pounds on their mission, and it took forever to gain that weight back because primarily a lot of offensive linemen, they're not always just these massive humans. They're usually thin guys, and then they add the weight because in the offensive line spot, you can make a lot of money. If you're an athlete and you can move with 300 pounds on your frame, you're going to make some big bucks. And if you're tall, even better. But Jax Tanner is a really good football player. His dad, Mike Tanner, former BYU linebacker. I remember Mike Tanner. I was talking to Jax, and I remember it's crazy to say now that I'm growing up in a world where, or not growing up because I'm old, but I'm living in a world where I'm old enough to where I remember when these guys' dads were playing. I remember going to BYU games in the early years of Bronco Mendenhall's defensive scheme, the 3-3-5, when he was the defensive coordinator in 2003. And those were some tough times for BYU football, but Mike Tanner was kind of an anchor in the middle, a really stout player. I always liked Mike Tanner because he was a BYU guy too. And when Jax Tanner was, flirting with Oregon, Tennessee, I'm thinking, he's got to go to BYU. He's a BYU man through and through, right? Sure enough, he ends up going to the Cougs. But it was not just assume he's going to come. Again, that's the thing is that, yes, there's a lot of talented LDS guys, but you can't just assume that BYU is going to get these guys. The great thing now is that BYU's got the strong connections to the church, as they always have. They've also got competitive NIL. They've got a coaching staff that is highly respected and heavily invested in now with the extension of Kalani Sitake. And they're winning on the field, and they've got power conference access. Now, we know the playoff committee is not going to give them much access, but you still have a path to playing at the highest levels of the sport. And by the time that Jax Tanner is done with his mission, who knows what the postseason is going to look like in college football at that time in 2028. Could be a 2014 playoff by then. And that could be where win 10 games and you're in automatically. So BYU has the whole package for LDS guys, because in the past, I would have said a Jax Tanner type guy, he'd probably be internally like, I love BYU, respect the heck out of BYU, but they don't have this. They don't have that. Well, there's nothing to say now that BYU doesn't have, and everything is in front of these players to achieve everything they want out of college football and more. I think the thing about BYU going forward that they've got to level up that's still kind of underwhelming is NFL draft picks. They've got to continue producing NFL picks. They've got some impactful guys. Fred Warner dealing with injury. Such a bummer with Fred. Puka Nacua is a superstar. But you've got to produce more. You got to have more picks. You can't go an entire year where you don't produce an NFL draft pick like last year. Like, how does that happen? So that's got to be an area to improve, but it's nice now having these top 20 classes. And if you can string this together on a consecutive basis annually, I think you're going to have better cracks at getting more NFL draft picks in the future. Speaking of offensive linemen at that Under Armour next camp, Bop Molitalo. Bop Molitalo, man, this guy's going to be good. And look, when I watched him in May, it was before he was going through a full season of reps at the offensive line position. Remember that time in the spring, he was once an Oregon commit as a defensive lineman. Then he opens up his recruitment, flips to BYU, I think in large part because he wants to play offensive line, and BYU was all about it. And as you can hear from Kalani Sitake on Bot Molitalo, he's got big projections on Bot and what he can be along the offensive line.
Well, he fits in the line of guys like Kingsley and Panay, that same body type. Guys that can play D-line, obviously, in college and the NFL. And the difference is I think he's still kind of new to O-line, but he's really good at it. And he can play either one. He can play whatever position he wants, and he's athletic enough to even play tight end. So he's gifted. We feel like an O-line position would be good for him there. And we think he can play early. We think he can compete for a starting spot right away. We happen to have some openings, but we also have some great rotation. The key is the best play. And the good thing is that he's going to start school in January and have a great offseason going into the fall of 26.
I'll be curious to see if Bot Molitalo can be on that starting line next season. You've got Andrew Gentry coming back, you would assume. You never know. You can never just completely assume that someone is back. You never know with portal and things like that. But if Gentry wants to run it back and be a star left tackle or right tackle, Gentry's got eligibility remaining. Isaiah Jotta's gone, though. You bring back Andrew Williams, who I think is going to be special. Andrew Williams is going to be a big-time player. He's redshirting this year. I think he's the next Blake Freeland. But can Molitalo maybe be in the mix with an Andrew Williams to compete for that offensive tackle spot? So that's going to be something I'm very curious to see. Looking at that offensive tackle position, you've got Gentry. Leia Usa's gone. He's played his last games at BYU as far as at home. We got the postseason now. Caden Chittister, Joe Brown could play guard. He could also play tackle, very versatile player. Iki Tupo, been playing some guard, but in high school, he played some offensive tackle. Ethan Thomason, he dealt with an ankle injury in fall camp, but really kind of put him by the 8 ball. He's going to be another big-time player. So you got Thomason, you got Andrew Williams, you got Bot Molitalo, and then Siosia Finau Vete. He'll be another good one, too, that was getting some moments in fall camp. I like where BYU's going along the offensive line. They got some deep-cut guys like Astrance Mangisi, Jeff Lewis, Chad Lewis's son, who was out with an injury this year. But I think Bott's going to make that thing competitive. It's an iron sharpens iron. I think he should be viewed as someone that's going to be in that 2 deep. When you're a 4-star top 100 recruit, that should be the expectation for someone like a Bott Molitalo. And when you get the Kingsley Penei Sewell comparison, makes all the sense in the world, man, for him to flip from D-line to offensive line. And at a place like BYU that is pumping out NFL linemen, good spot to be. Someone that I am really excited about at BYU, Lopeti Moala. I think this is like my guy. I still feel like he's underrated. Even though he's a 4-star, 24/7 Sports has put a lot of respect on his name. Lopeti Juni Moala. I think this guy is going to be a special player for BYU. I just think there's something about him where he's a BYU guy. A member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, 6'4", 255 pounds. When he was committed to BYU from Davis, he played his last year at prep high school or prep ball at Orem High School. I thought to myself, watching his huddle film and following his recruitment, I thought, how on earth is this guy only a 3-star? He's just dominant. He can play D-end. He can play D-tackle. He's got the frame where you can add more weight to him. And BYU's had a lot of success with these type of guys. You can think of, a John Nelson, a Blake Mangelson, John Talmoy Peau. You can do a lot of different things. Lorenzo Fauatea back in the day. Moala, though, might be at an even higher level than all those names I mentioned. Those were a lot of developmental guys. Juni Moala is just an outstanding, highly productive player. Go watch the state playoffs. He's everywhere, just making an impact. And one of the things I love when watching high school prospects, I just want to sometimes see game film and highlights where you're just completely dominating. If you're just a tier above your peers. And look, anyone that's signing at the D1, especially the power conference level, they're clearly a tier above their peers. But sometimes there's cases where maybe their, athleticism and their track and field background is what leads to them getting scholarship opportunities and playing at the next level, but they're a little bit more projection based. And Moala, still, I think there's room to grow in his game, but I look at him as someone there where he was terrorizing opposing offenses. I think Moala is going to be just one heck of a football player at BYU, and he's a BYU guy. I mean, again, when you get players that just are devout members of the church, very humble, meek and humble, like Kalani loves, those are the BYU guys you got to get, and you got to hit it out of the park and make sure they're playing at BYU. And I just think he is one that I feel like you're going to hear a lot about him in his BYU career. Very excited about Lopeti Moala. Someone else I'm really excited to see in his BYU career, it's going to take some time to see him, though, is Adam Bywater. He's going to be serving a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints coming out of Olympus High School. 6'4", 215 pounds is Adam Bywater, and he's just like his brother Ben. Kind of got a similar demeanor. I talked to him in May at the Under Armour Next Camp. Got a similar vibe, the way he talks. I love talking with Ben Bywater. I thought he was one of my favorites to talk to on the BYU beat, and I think Adam's going to be someone that maybe has a little bit higher ceiling potentially. Ben was primarily, rugby guy, then turned into a football player, and his recruitment was kind of under the radar. Adam had a lot more recruiting interest. You had, the likes of Utah, Arizona State, Boise State were all in the mix. And there were times, too, where I thought, this isn't a foregone conclusion where it's just a slam dunk. BYU's going to get Adam Bywater. They had to battle. There were times where I thought this could be in favor of Utah, but ultimately they get him. And I think that's a great get for the Cougars to have Adam Bywater. I think is going to be, a really stout linebacker. BYU and linebackers, say less. Like, they just always produce really good linebackers at BYU. There's something about LDS people and linebackers. I don't know how to describe it, but they're good. It's just a pipeline of really talented linebackers, particularly in the state and just the LDS people in general. It's just a spot where there's been a lot of success over the years. Someone else that I'm really excited about, and I think he's a projection guy, and he's going to be someone that maybe takes a couple of years. Think about in the mold of Evan Johnson, where maybe there's 2 years where there's not much of a dent early on, but around year 3, if there's patience shown, he takes off and is one of the top players in the team. In the secondary, Antonio T.J. Johnson, 6'4", 170 pounds, out of Fort Worth, Texas. Recruited by Miami, Ohio, Sacramento State, Texas State, and UTEP. Those offers are not going to blow your socks off. But I think what will blow your socks off is just how highly productive he is. Track and field background, basketball guy, rangy, athletic athlete. Measurables that you can turn him into a special player potentially. And someone that had 7 interceptions in his high school career. Sounds a lot like a Falatau Satuala. 6'4", out of Fort Worth, Texas, Arlington Heights. Wonder if he'll be there on Saturday for BYU Texas Tech. But I think that he could be a really good one. I always like to, when Jay Hill kind of gives a vote of approval on a safety, like any safety prospect that Jay Hill recruits, I'm intrigued by, because Jay Hill has such a high bar for what he expects from the safety position. And that expectation, I think, has naturally leveled up that group. Tanner Wall, Raider DeMooney, Falatau Satuala, they've all been awesome this year. Talon Alfrey, too. You could go on and on. That's been an excellent group. Tommy Parasis, when healthy. BYU has so much talent there, and I think there's just such a high expectation from Jay Hill, Gavin Fowler, what they want from that spot. So again, when you go out on the recruiting trail, and Texas has been a place where Jay Hill's had a long history of recruiting connections from his days at Utah, he identifies this guy and thinks there's something. Where no one else is seeing anything, Jay Hill's going, I see a great player. So I always like that with Jay Hill. Whenever BYU gets a safety, I'm very intrigued because it's ultimately getting the Jay Hill stamp of approval. All these defensive guys have got to get the approval from Jay, but safety even more than most because, again, what he expects from the position. Another safety is Sefania Alatini, 6'2", 199 pounds, out of St. Francis High School. A little bit of a pipeline there for that school. Kingston Kiani Aina. Got to go check the pronunciation guide again from last year. I apologize, Kingston, if I messed that up. But St. Francis High School producing back-to-back cycles with a BYU commit. He'll be one to watch down the road. Also at safety, Kawe Akana, 6'3", 220 pounds, going to serve a mission first out of Orem High School. Big-time offer sheet. This was a guy that was primarily wide receiver was the interest, but as over the course of his career, it's evolved where he's settling in at the safety position. I think that's where he wants to be too, on the defensive side. And, you know, I personally thought he'd be a great wide receiver at the collegiate level because there were just times where I'm seeing Puka Nakua-like moments. Maybe it was just the Orem High thing, so it was easy to draw that comparison, but the way that Orem High was using him, I was having flashbacks of Puka at BYU sometimes. Still, he's going to be playing safety. He's the cousin of BYU edge rusher Tausili Akana. Again, he's going to serve a mission first. He was also part of Ryder Lyons' Cold Hearts 7-on-7 team in Overtime Elite. He was part of that group as well. So Kawe Akana, another safety that's in this talented top 20 recruiting class nationally for the BYU football team. And another safety is Matthew Mason, 6'3", 190 pounds, out of Las Vegas, Nevada. This guy is a hitter, man. He loves to make a tackle, get up in the box, and go hit someone. Again, it's a nice pairing where you've got TJ, and then you got Matthew Mason. TJ is kind of like the Falatau where he's going to get the picks, make the acrobatic athletic plays. And then you got a Matthew Mason who's kind of the next Raider DeMooney where he's going to lay the hit stick. He's going to jar a ball loose, come up with a fumble recovery, things like that. That's Matthew Mason. So really productive player as well. He was very good. You go watch some of his games in Vegas. Like, it stood out. He was the best player on the field in many of those games. And again, that's something that you like to see, where when BYU's offering guys, you don't want them to just look like, do they really belong at the collegiate level? There were times early on in the Kalani era where I'd kind of ask myself on some recruits and I'd say, okay, maybe I can see it with the size, the measurables, but is this a D1 guy? I don't have that thought process anymore with this class. And I think that's a byproduct of the Big 12 bump, the winning on the field, and again, the competitiveness in NIL for BYU. And to be competitive in NIL, it gives you the chance to maybe flip some guys. And BYU flipped their share of recruits in this cycle. Terrence Sarian, a 5'11", 175-pound wide receiver out of Portland, Oregon. He was once committed to the Washington Huskies before flipping his pledge to BYU. 1,299 total receiving yards in his high school career, including 818 in his junior season. 10 receiving touchdowns, and he was also a 7-on-7 teammate with BYU commit Brock Harris. So very excited to see what Sarian can do. You look at the wide receiver position group long-term for the Cougars. Remember, you got LaMason Waller, who redshirted this season. He'll be in the mix in 2026 because you lose Chase Roberts. But that wide receiver position, you got Parker Kingston, Tiger Bachmeier, JoJo runs it back, Cody Hagan, Reggie Frischneck, Dom McKenzie, Tay Nakua. I got to think someone probably in that group. You'd love to see all of them, but you probably think that someone's going to say, I'm going to go in the portal. You got all those guys coming back potentially. LaMason Waller, Jet Nilsson comes back from mission. He's already back. He was mission companions with Enoch Watson, who was another quarterback that's going to be in the pipeline coming up in January. And I think he's a talented signal caller that's going to be in the mix for this BYU football program. A lot of wide receivers. Trey Roberts, Chase Roberts' younger brother, who I really liked in fall camp, got some run in week 1 against Portland State. Asher Young from Orem High School comes back from a mission. So many guys. And another wide receiver is Legend Glasker, the cousin of BYU linebacker Isaiah Glasker. And Legend, awesome name, by the way. How can you not love that name? Legend Glasker, 6'2", 175 pounds. He was recruited by Kansas State. And the way that he plays, I don't know how to describe it, but he's like a K-State guy. That made total sense to me that he's getting offered by them. If you know, you know. The way that K-State recruits, JUCO guys, under-the-radar dudes from like pockets of the country that you would think, why is K-State getting in the mix for them? But Glasker kind of fits that. He's super underrated, I think. As a senior, had 676 yards on 37 receptions with 9 touchdowns and had 206 rushing yards as well. Jet sweep, anyone? Okay. Jet sweep, anyone? I think so with Legend Glasker. That'll be a good one for the Cougars. I think Glasker's going to be one to watch. And again, he's a Glasker. Isaiah's a stud. Legend's a stud. We'll see how it goes. His Lehigh High School running mate, Devon Eka, 5'11", 190 pounds, running back. And look, I talked about this when he committed. You look at the running back pipeline, and Aaron Rodder kind of touched on it earlier today at his press conference. It's a kind of bare cupboard. He didn't say bare, but especially if LJ leaves and goes to the NFL, he went through senior day. Eka can have a chance to compete and earn some opportunities. Now, BYU, I think, has got to get at least 2 portal guys, at least. Maybe 3, just to make sure you got all this competition in spring and then you make itself work. You've got to replenish that running back room because how it's been working this year is just, there's no one. There's no one to turn to outside of LJ and Bear. And thank goodness Bear is more than enough capable to, one, run the football, but withstand hits. You have no alternatives running the football besides LJ Martin. Yes, the receivers with jet sweeps, but let's get some thunder and lightning. Let's get some pairings. Like Texas Tech's situation at running back with Dickey and Jacoby Williams, I mean, that's what you want. You want a little bit of thunder and lightning. It's a shame that BYU didn't have that with LJ Martin this year. It could have been with Sione Moa. And again, Sione Moa is going to come back, and he's on the depth chart this week for the Big 12 championship game. But still, I don't think you just anoint him the number one spot. I think you make him earn it. And you give a lot of competition, and then if he earns it, then fantastic. Sione Moa earned his way, but you don't just hand him the role. Even though I think Sione Moa could be really special for BYU, someone like a Devon Eka, hey, if you come in right away, perform, why not? 5'11", 190, he's on the smaller side, unlike LJ, who, when he was a freshman, you're talking 6'2", great size. But look, there's a place for a 5'11", 190 running back. That can work. You add a little bit of weight to that frame. I'm very intrigued with Devon Eka. I think he'll be, because of opportunity, it creates a space where we might hear him get some opportunities to play right away for BYU. Kind of going through the rest of the class here, Justice Braithwaite, 6'1", 190 pounds out of Arizona, son of Reynaldo Braithwaite, who I loved growing up as a kid. I loved Reynaldo Braithwaite. I thought he was a baller. Had the longest run in BYU football history against San Diego State. Justice Braithwaite, he was the first commit in this 2026 recruiting cycle. Let's see. Graham Livingston, another baller. 5'11", 180 pounds at a Ridgeline High School. This is a guy that people are sleeping on too. Watching Ridgeline, they were the dominant force in 4A in the local high school football scene. Like, no one was coming close to them. They just crushed everyone. And Livingston, incredible stats, highly productive, great speed. Graham Livingston, kind of like a Parker Kingston, up north, number 11, quick, speedy guy, great track times. That's what really impressed Kalani Sitake to give Livingston the offer. And then shortly thereafter, he committed to BYU. I had the chance to talk with him over the summer, and he's dynamic, and he's someone that wanted to be at BYU. His brother, Hayden Livingston, an analyst in the football program, former walk-on quarterback commit, then turned safety, linebacker, did a lot of different things at BYU. Graham Livingston, I think he's going to be one to watch. I think that is not, like, there's still the recruits that not everyone can be, 10-plus Power 4 offer sheets. Not everyone. There's still a place, though, for a local guy with great, speed and intangibles and highly productive. You still want to get that guy. You still want to get them on board if they're worthy of getting an offer. And Kalani Sitake, who has done a really nice job at evaluating wide receivers, who are we to say that's not the move? He turned Parker Kingston really into a highly productive player. Why can't Graham Livingston be that for BYU as well? Nehemiah Cologne, 6'4", 265 pounds out of Stillwater, Oklahoma. From one Big 12 market to another, he's going to join the BYU program in 2026. And I liked his recruitment, how you could tell there was a real interest in BYU from the get-go. He went to the BYU Oklahoma State game in 2024 when BYU had that last-second victory. This is a guy that I think a little bit takes some time. I don't know if he's an instant impact guy from the jump, but at a minimum, bring some competitiveness and some competitive depth to that defensive line. And a guy that committed to BYU at a similar time frame as Cologne is Braxton Lindsey out of Arkansas and Rogers High School in Rogers, Arkansas, 6'3", 230 pounds. I asked Jay Hill about Braxton Lindsey because BYU beat out a handful of SEC teams for him, and with him being from the state of Arkansas in SEC territory, I wanted to know how heated of a battle that was to get Lindsey, and this was Jay Hill.
He's definitely one of my favorite guys we've recruited in the last couple of years. Very athletic, very physical. Quite frankly, could play on both sides of the ball. He's a great tight end. He could be a linebacker. He could be a defensive end. His recruiting was very hot, I guess is the way you'd put it. There were a lot of great teams that were trying to get him. him being a member of the church, I think, was a big deal, but just also, and more than anything, just the feel he had when he was on campus and to the coaches, I think was a big deal. Coach Papinga did a phenomenal job recruiting him, and he will be a huge asset to our program.
Defensive end, Braxton Lindsay. I think he's going to be a good one. I'm really high on the prospect of him having an instant impact for BYU and BYU's defensive ends. That's another spot that I'm very intrigued to see how that all comes together in the future. Bodie Schoonover's got eligibility remaining. Tausilia Kana, Sani Tuwala, Viliami Puha, Kinilau Fonahema, Orion Miley Kafusi, Hunter Clegg, Nusi Talmoy Payao in that Sam linebacker spot. Ephraim Asiata, kind of that hybrid as well. Siosefa Brown, that's a name to watch. He's redshirting this year. Nobody's talking about him out of Highland. Seeing him at practice, dude's got a college football, like, power 4 body. He's ready to contribute next year. I think Sefa Brown will be one to watch. Vincent Tautua, dealing with a little bit of an injury back at fall camp. Kalepi Finau Vete. And then you got some other guys, too. Devo Tuataga, David Tangalano, Adney Reed, Lopeti Moala, who I mentioned earlier. So, a lot of options along that defensive line. Again, like, I'll get deep into the weeds with you folks. D tackle too, Justin Kirkland, red shirts this year. He'll play in the Big 12 championship game and the postseason. You got also Anisi Purcell, Keanu Tanavasa went through senior day, but he's got eligibility remaining if he wanted to come back. Alvin Puefua in the interior of the D line. He'll be one to watch. The former Hawaii transfer, redshirted this year, but keep an eye out for him next season. Kendall Wall, Ulavai Fetuli. There's options. There is a lot of options. Maverick McManus, too. So, yeah. BYU's defensive line, I think, is trending up, and they got better after signing day today. But that's going to do it for this edition of the Cougar Tracks podcast. I hope all of you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to the show. Leave a 5-star rating and review. Helps out the show a ton. And I will be back tomorrow with all the latest for BYU and Texas Tech. Close the book on the extension of Kalani Sitake and actually look at this BYU Texas Tech game. It's been a week, folks. It's been a crazy week. We're getting closer now to game day. How about that? I'm ready to dive into this actual game, folks. Let's get it on. Let's do this thing. And then all the latest with signing day, because signing day doesn't officially close until Friday with this signing window in the early period. So if there's any more additions, we've got you covered here on Cougar Tracks, and it's always powered by KSLSports.com.